So, it felt really good to have it out there finally. And it was quite a journey, but great to be here. And it's been a great experience with Leaders Press, being with me all throughout that journey.
Hello, everybody. Welcome and welcome back. It is Leaders Talk, and as usual, I am your host, Andrew Dupe, Chief Relationship Officer here at Leaders Press. And today, in the words of the great David Letterman, my next guest needs no introduction. He needs no introduction because was our first guest 1 year ago in January. The first guest on Leaders Talk is now here to return. And we're going to catch up with him, see what has happened between those intervening 12 months, see what kind of successes he's had, and talk about his book, Adapt. It is the book, The First Step Towards Success That Lasts. It's Raghavan Venugopal. He is, of course, one of the managing directors at We Win, as we had discussed before. Raghavan, welcome back. You are our first repeat guest.
Hey, Andrew. Great to be here. It's been 1 year already. Time flies when you're
I
having.
know it seems like yesterday. I'm absolutely surprised that just how much has happened in this last year. And it's fantastic though to catch up with you, because before you were a prospective author, you were coming into it. You were actually very close to finishing your book. You've been with us on an anthology before, but now Adapt is done. It's actually finished. It's complete, and I'd love to hear what you have to say about it.
Oh, yeah, I know. I think it was a wonderful journey. We talked about some of it last year.
Yeah.
We were in the process of finishing up, but it actually took till November. So it was during Thanksgiving that the book got published. So, it felt really good to have it out there finally. And it was quite a journey, but great to be here. And it's been a great experience with Leaders Press, being with me all throughout that journey. So yeah, I know it's been a wonderful experience to go through this and to have the book published and getting some good feedback, getting some
Oh
great
yeah.
reviews, in the last, because, it so happened that we entered right in the middle of the holiday season. So it was good to have the book out there. So people had some time to read it, and wonderful reviews coming in. So very, satisfying. And it's a great feeling, very humbled.
I was actually looking at it right before we came in. The reviews are coming in; they're very glowing. And internally, talking even to our own people, everybody says the book is great. It had wonderful response from our own internal team. So, for the benefit of our audience that may not be able to catch the first one or want to go back, just give us a kind of a brief overview. What is Adapt, and what is what are its goals?
Yeah, Adapt is, it's about this person who's a mid-level manager who has high ambitions, but not necessarily in tune with what management leadership is about. So it starts there. The character goes on this journey from an individual contributor to a mid-level manager, and the challenges that comes through in that journey, and basically the lessons learned and how that is helping that person overcome those challenges and being successful. So I think that's basically the first in the series of books. The books is one of the first 3 or 4 that I have in mind. So it goes like Adapt, Evolve, Become, and Be. So those are basically the books in the series, where the character itself progresses from a mid-level manager to a director, and then to an executive director, and then hopefully to be a CEO. So it's a story. It's in a story format. So if the in your audience knows about this book called The Goal, it's in that same format where the story itself is basically used as the tool to push the content through. It's about management philosophy. It's about processes and systems that go inside the management philosophy that this character holds dear to heart and embraces and uses in that journey. But the focus is on the story, so it's an easy read.
And that's what fascinates me about Adapt, and that's one of the things that I think stand out. And it's great because we can now kind of bring together everything that we've talked about in the whole year, all the way up until this, and the many episodes that have come in between your first and this one. We've many times talked to storytellers, fiction authors about the story process. Many times our audience might not know, I mean, why do we want to talk about storytelling and when we're going to be going into nonfiction, we're going to be going into business. What was the reason that you chose storytelling and you chose this kind of an approach to make Adapt work?
Yeah, so storytelling, it's just age old, right? It's to get somebody's attention. It's always easy when you are able to get them in the mood to listen to a story, and it's easy. And the story is an application. It pulls together a lot of different diverse threads together when you're telling a story. So, that was the inherent thought process on using that story format. And
Yeah.
like I said, I've always been in awe of the goal. It was a great book. I read it again when I went into my management class in my executive MBA at Rice. So very close to heart. I've even listened to the audiobooks with my kid, who happens to be another great fan of the same book. So when I had this idea of talking about management philosophy, I wanted it to be something that was easy to understand, easy to grapple with. And I thought that telling it through a story would be so much more simpler. The format is so much more easy to grapple with. It's basically a lot of analogies, a lot of, parables that happens one chapter after the next, and each one signifies something deeper. And that deeper sense is basically that management philosophy that, what we want the audience to take away. So
Yeah.
that's basically the intent towards using this format.
I think it relates more to the audience as well, being able, rather than just kind of talk at them, you're more or less driving them, bringing them through a process that they
Right.
can then begin to relate to themselves in their life, no matter what they do, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and that's like, you said it really well. Yes. So it's about this person who is in the tech field, but it doesn't necessarily stop there. When you're saying it in a story format, it doesn't necessarily
Mhm.
bound itself within this boundary of a tech field or whatever field you might be. It's the problems are very similar, and the challenges are pretty often the same kinds that you have to deal with.
So, what are your plans then with this whole series of books that you're bringing together? Many of our audience members will think, well, what is the goal going to be with these books? How are you going to actually turn this into something that's going to start making tangible revenue for you and your business?
Yeah, so I think, the eventually where I want to land all of this is having some kind of a management consultancy that would be using this philosophy. Because I keep talking about this philosophy, let me just give you a little bit of background of what this philosophy is. In simple
Absolutely.
terms, I call it IGUS. IGUS is integrated growth in the path to unite with the purpose to serve. And it has three legs to it. The first leg is self-growth. For anything to happen, it all starts with that particular person. That particular person needs to have the ambition or the drive or the inquisitiveness to dig deeper within themselves. So that's where everything starts. So that's the self-growth part of that first pillar. The second pillar is in the path to unite is basically teamwork. We live in a world where everything that each person achieves is because of a team. There is nothing that is just individual only achievement. It is always, there is a bigger team that you have to work with, work within, and stakeholders that might be not necessarily part of the team, but external audiences that are a bigger group of team members that need to be taken into account. So it's how do you do that? How do you acknowledge that? And how do you make sure that you're going to be successful in those environments? So I think that's the second leg that needs to be understood, and that needs to be, really you have to prepare yourself to make success a possibility for that second leg. And then the third leg is, what is the purpose for all of this? There is a bigger meaning, there is a bigger purpose, there is a calling each one of us need to have in order to go after, rather than just the physical stuff, the material stuff, which is very important. Don't get me wrong. It makes a lot of things very happen, and it's very important. But beyond that, there is something that is a calling for each one of us. And what this philosophy says, that calling is the service portion of it. You're always performing a service. You're always, servicing someone, whether it might be yourself when you're younger. So you're providing time for yourself, you're investing in your own capabilities, you're identifying what those capabilities are, or you're investing your service to a team that you're responsible for, a customer that you're responsible for. So it's always something that is a service that is kept as a North Star that guides you, that is the compass. So those are the three legs. So that's what IGA stands for. And then once you have basically created this philosophy, then there is this management philosophy that is the bottommost layer, the foundational layer, which then supports the second layer, which is the processes and the systems that allows to embrace this philosophy, allows a practitioner to embrace this philosophy. So there are processes that are going to basically allow for differentiated outputs, differentiating the service or a product that always is required, because if you are to be successful, you need to have something that is unique and that is differentiated. And you have to have a growth mindset, because without a growth mindset, you're not going to be constantly pushing yourself to the next step. And there is quality that is very important, whether it be a service, whether it be a product, whatever that you are going to be providing of value need to be of good quality. So those are the three main aspects that comes out from these processes and systems that are the second layer. So you have the bottommost layer, which is the foundational layer of the philosophy itself, that then ties into the processes and the systems that allow you to embrace the philosophy, and the outputs of it are differentiated, growth mindset with good quality. And then it is all tied back into this application, which is the story itself. Yeah. The story itself is the application of these processes and systems using this philosophy, but at different stages of a person's life. What happens when that person is an individual contributor going on to becoming a mid-level manager, and then what happens when that mid-level manager is more ambitious, wants to become a director, and so on. There's always that growth path that keeps going on. So that's basically what the idea is behind the series, and how it'll all tie together for the audience.
Yeah, you're basically uncomplicating what would sound complicated.
That's the idea. Hopefully, it comes out that way in this interview.
Oh, I think so. I mean, and I think that that's already been what has been the response that we've had to the book, is that by separating everything out, by putting it in that kind of format, you're able to kind of untangle what, if you were going to make it a textbook kind of situation, that right. Somebody would get lost. I mean, you'd be sitting there, you'd be reading it, to be okay, that's fine. Where do I kind of skip to the end? So how was the process of writing Adapt? How did that feel to be able to actually have that idea and where getting it to fruition and beginning to see it come together?
Yeah, it's a painful process, actually. Yeah.
Oh, I know.
It is a very painful process. See, the thought itself came to me in sometime around 2013. So I think I told you this maybe last year, but 2013, 2014, see, I have this habit of documenting all of what I do. Because right when I took on the first managerial role, I had just completed my executive MBA at Rice. Thanks to that kind of background and education, I tried to take all that learnings and apply it in my workplace, and then convert what was happening in the workplace and documenting each one of the processes that I was applying, whether it be people management, whether it be a new product development, a new process that was getting implemented. I was very clear in documenting each one of them, and then even hyper communicating within my team as those changes, because as a leader you're supposed to walk through the transformations that are required from point A to point B. It's a bunch of change management and change initiatives that you're leading, and as you're leading that, you have to keep the team members clearly aligned at every point in that stage. So I would always, have these team meetings, once a quarter team meetings, that I would say from point A to point B, this is what we said we would do, and this is where we are now, and now we have this to go. So when I had completed this 4 years of this with my first team that I was practicing, I had this clear material that I thought was very well put together already, because there was a clear point of beginning, and then there was a clear point of end state, and which was defined by what happened with people, what happened with the processes, what happened with the systems, and what happened with the metrics and outcomes. Right. So those are the 5 important aspects of management. You first start with people. You have to have people. Nothing moves without people. That is the most important ingredient. And then,
absolutely.
yes. And then you have to improve the efficiencies of the people by applying good processes. And in order to support those processes, you put systems in place. And once you have the process and systems, you go back and check with the people whether they are comfortable in applying those processes and systems that you put in place. You fine tune it. And then you start measuring. You start measuring the outcomes based on some of metrics that you feel is very important, that states that you have reached your end goal, the destination. And whether if it is a product company, there are metrics that defines what the number of products, what the number of innovations, patents, invention disclosures, time to market, turnaround time, cost of development, blah, 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 whatever. If it is a service, I'm sure there will be something along those lines, but those are all metrics that gives the team the idea whether they have reached their goal or whether there is still more work to do. But that's basically the 4 aspects of management that I see. And that's how it all started in 2013, when I had finished my first managerial assignment, building this team, building new products and innovations and whatnot. I had this good set of documentation because of the way that I was trained, and because of the person that I was, I had this good set of document that I had, clearly put in place. So once I had that document, I was always wanting to, say that out. Would it be useful? Because would it be useful for others? Because it helped me a lot. And how would I tell it to the world? If I were to tell it, how would it be most effectively communicated? So a more wider audience would take advantage of what I had learned, what I had put together. And that's when it all started, right? So then it is, okay, what is the format? And then slowly the other pieces started falling in place. Do I just say it like one, and then the same phase is repeated when I went from one phase of my journey, career path to the next. I've made from a mid-level manager to a director, and I did the same thing again, because that's basically what I am like, I guess. So I did that same thing again when I was a director, and there is a point A to point B, and there is people, there is process. It's a different environment, a different challenge, but the template is pretty much the same. You have people, have process, you have systems, you have to have metrics. Again, the metrics might be different, but you have to have some metrics, and you have to have people. And once you have people, you have to make them efficient, which means you need to have some process. Okay, once you have process, you need to adopt some systems that allows for those processes to effectively run. So, like I said, this template is what got me going. And then during COVID, I kept, going back to this thought over and over again. And I felt that it would all come together if it was told in a philosophy. There is this management philosophy that ties all of this together. And then there are processes and systems that are using that philosophy as the driver. And then there are applications, and the applications are the different phases of what a person would go through. And there are different phases as the person grows in their career. There's going to be the phase of an individual contributor to the highest phase of a CEO of an organization. So all of those are different phases that basically would be told as the application, the story format. So that's how it all came together. So it was a long process. Hopefully the second and the third or the fourth ones would not take this much time, because now it is mostly, I have those materials. I just went and looked in my study yesterday. I have those documented materials of each one of those phases already. So, hopefully now that we have set the precedent and set the templates, the second, third, and hopefully the fourth would be much more easier to narrate.
Put together. But you seem though to have made, even though it was obviously a difficult process to get the first book out, you seem to have streamlined it by being able to at least plan and do a lot of pre-planning before you even got to the point where you invested in it. Because what I hear a lot in many stories, I mean, we hear all kinds now on the podcast from people that have done what you have done and planned ahead, or some that have tried to dive right in. And many that do that, I'm going to try everything myself, dive right in, they always come back and have to go through that first step again.
Yeah. No, I think, see, that's where Leaders Press, the whole process helped a lot. Working with Leaders Press, I've got to give kudos to the team that supported me. Because, see, finally, I have another job. This is not my, I have a very stressful, main job that I have to, basically that's my job. And I wanted this to be my passion. I wanted this to be told, the story to be told. So I needed support. And specifically where I kind of hit a wall was these analogies and trying to tell them in a lucid, in a storytelling format. I wrote the first chapter first. It took a long time for me to write the first chapter, but it helped because it gave me an idea of how I would say it in the way I because finally it should be genuine. It should come out in my voice. So it helped me see and listen to my voice when I wrote that first chapter. But from the second chapter onwards, I had Leaders Press help me out a lot, because we had these interview sessions that we used as, taking interviews. I think it was a total of 16 interviews that we did that allow for me to narrate several of those other incidents that were part of chapter 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I think we cut to 5 chapters. We cut the last chapter off, but we did the work for 6 chapters. And I narrated several incidents and what would constitute each one of those chapters, which, Leaders Press clearly helped me. The team helped me put together on the other chapters. So, yes, it was, the process was time consuming initially, but I think it was time well spent because it helped us get the other chapters in place. And all of those chapters were all in that same kind of narrative style as the first chapter that I had written initially.
Do you feel that that's positioned you better to be able to get everything you want to get out of this book?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the final product I'm very happy with the final product. I'm very, close. It's because went and looked at it as a third person. I kept reading it, even during the trip. I kept reading it once or twice and thrice, and it felt good. It's an easy read. It's only 76 pages. It's a very easy read. Everything comes together well, is what
That is the statement I have heard that makes me the most happy, that when you read your own book, it felt good.
Yes, because I think we are the first critics, and we
Yes.
have to be, right? We have to be, and does it feel good? Is it because we have these big visions, and I had that vision of what it would look like, and I had to go back and check myself whether it came out the way I first envisioned, and yes, it did. So thanks to Leaders Press.
I am so happy to hear that. That absolutely delights me, because again, so many authors I talk to, hundreds, not just ours, but even outside, that say, my first pass in the book, I just didn't like it and I hated it and wanted to throw it out. I love to hear that we were able to help you bring that together.
Yeah.
So Raghavan, as we're kind of wrapping up a little bit here, what advice do you have for our audience? What I usually say, a golden nugget or something we haven't covered, but I mean, just maybe something to help them along in the process. Many of them that are wanting to take those kind of first steps. Just something that you may not have touched on that can inspire them to maybe take that first step and get that first book out.
Yeah, absolutely. See, every one of us has a story to tell. We all have our lessons. We all go through life, and we have our own lessons, and there is a story to be told. And even if it is not a lesson, there might be something else that is very important for each one of us that we want to have the world listen to. So there is a voice that we all yearn that we have. And that's what I felt came out of this process, where I feel like I had this idea and I thought it might be helpful for others. So I put my time, I invested my time and effort to make sure that voice gets heard. And it's a good feeling, even if it helps one person, even if it is one person that comes back and says, wow, I felt really good reading this. I felt I was there as part of that team that went through this process, which happened in my case. The very first person that read this, they haven't put that review on Amazon, but it was on LinkedIn, and they sent out, it's an old colleague, and he read this and he was like thrilled beyond words, and he put that so vividly and so nicely on a LinkedIn review. And it was wonderful to hear that. I was literally in tears, and I'm not the person who cries. And my wife, I even told my wife, it's like, wow, when was the last time have you seen me cry? But reading this made me so emotional that, yeah, this is why I spent that time. This is why I invested that time. So I think that feeling of satisfaction is very hard to get by. And it is something that you believe in inherently at the core. And when that belief is actually coming back to you from someone else who sees that and who appreciates that and who recognizes that, that I think is really, really good to go after. So for anyone who has an idea, which I think everybody has, because we all have our own learnings and we have something to talk about, I would say go after it and get it.
Ladies and gentlemen, if that can't inspire you, absolutely nothing can. Raghavan, that was beautiful. Wonderful words. How can our audience find out more about you?
So the book has a link about my website, and anybody who buys the book can reach out to me. I'm on LinkedIn. So anyone who wants to know more about Adapt or just wants to connect to me can certainly reach out to me in any of those channels.
Wonderful. And all of those links, ladies and gentlemen, are down below, along with the link to our very first interview. So if you want to book in them, watch them back to back, see how far we've come in the last year, please feel free. Raghavan, it was great meeting you again. I hope you're going to be back, because we got more books to do.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Looking forward to this journey. And yes, very excited for 2024, and wish you all a wonderful 2024. And thank you, Andrew. Thank you for hosting. And it's been a pleasure talking with you, and wish you a wonderful new year as well.
Thank you. And Happy New Year. Let's make this a New Year tradition.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Will do. Take care.
Stand out in the way, that's going to be hard to stand out otherwise.